I'm Philip K. Dick. This is my speech. The title of it is, If You Find This World Bad, You Should See Some of the Others. May I tell you how much I appreciate your asking me to share some of my I'm Philip K. Dick. Novels carries with him constantly what most women carry large purses. Much that is useless, a few absolutely essential items. I'm Philip K. Dick. A good measure, a great number of things which fall in between. But the novelist does not transport them physically because his trove of possessions is not Philip K. Dick. Now and then he adds a new and entirely useless idea. Now and then he reluctantly cleans out the trash, the obviously worthless ideas, and with a few sentimental tears sheds them. Once in a great while, however, happens by chance onto a thoroughly stunning idea new to him, which he hopes will turn out to be new to everyone else. It is this final category which dignifies his existence. With such truly priceless ideas, perhaps during his entire lifetime, he may at best acquire only but that is enough. He has to justify his existence to
May I tell you how much I appreciate you asking me to share some of my ideas with you. The title of my address is, If You Find This World Bad, You Should See Some of the Others. this, that I've been asked to cut about 2/3 of my speech out and deliver as short a speech as possible. Upon examining my speech, I find that it is very easy to remove 2/3 without doing any injury to it. I even considered cutting 3/3 out of it, but there was some trouble, so I abandoned that idea. The subject of this speech, the topic, which has been discovered recently, and which may not exist at all. I may be talking about something that does not exist. Therefore, I'm free to say everything or nothing. I can hardly make an error if there is no such thing as a law.
Aspetta, ti prego, fidati di me. Perché? Perché quello che c'è là fuori già lo conosci. È come quella strada, sai esattamente dove va. E io so che non è qui che devi stare. E io so che non è qui che tu vuoi stare.
What shall they do in the meantime? They can't just leave the present one hanging. Their employer has decreed that perpetual replacement, that is to say, changing the pictures, is to take place. So they neither allow the current one to remain, nor do they replace it with a new one. Instead, they do a very clever thing. When their employer is not looking, the servants cunningly alter the picture already on the wall. They paint out a tree here, they paint in a little girl there, they add this, they obliterate that, they make the same may not exist. My concept may be fictional. It could exist. It is not intellectually self-contradictory. Contemplating this possibility of a lateral arrangement of worlds, a plurality of overlapping Earths along whose linking axis a person can somehow move, can travel in a mysterious way from worse to fair to good to excellent. Contemplating this in theological terms, perhaps we could say that herewith we suddenly decipher the elliptical utterances which Christ expressed regarding the kingdom of God, specifically where it is located. He seems to have given contradictory and puzzling answers. But suppose, just suppose for an instant, that the cause of the perplexity lay not in any desire on his part to baffle or to hide, but in the inadequacy of the question.
My kingdom is not of this world, he is reported to have said.
The kingdom is within you, or possibly it is among you. I put before you now the notion, which I personally find exciting, that he may have had in mind that which I speak of as the lateral axis of overlapping realms, which contain among them a spectrum of aspects ranging from the unspeakably malignant to the beautiful.
piace l'idea di non poter gestire la mia vita. Capisco perfettamente ciò che intendi. Adesso ti dico perché sei qui. Sei qui perché intuisci qualcosa che non riesci a spiegarti. Senti solo che c'è. È tutta la vita che hai la sensazione che ci sia qualcosa che non quadra nel mondo. Non sai bene di che si tratta, ma l'avverti. È un chiodo fisso nel cervello, da diventarci matto. È questa sensazione che ti ha portato da me. Tu sai di cosa sto parlando. Di Matrix. Ti interessa davanti agli occhi per nasconderti la verità. Quale verità? Che tu sei uno schiavo mio, come tutti gli altri sei nato in catene, sei nato in una prigione che non ha sbarre, che non ha mura, che non ha odori, una prigione per la tua mente. Nessuno di noi è in grado, purtroppo, di descrivere Matrix agli altri. Dovrai scoprire con i tuoi occhi che cos'è.
We are enjoined repeatedly in the New Testament to be vigilant, that for the Christian it is always day. There is always light by which he can see this event when it comes.
See this event. Does that imply that many persons who are somehow asleep or blind or not vigilant, they will not see it even though it occurs? Consider the significance which can be assigned to these notions. The kingdom will come here unexpectedly. This is always stressed. The rightful faithful shall see it, because for them it is always daytime. But for the others, what seems expressed here is the paradoxical but enthralling thought that, and hear this and ponder, the kingdom were it established here would not be visible to those outside it. I offer the idea that in more modern terms, what is meant that some of us will travel laterally to that better world and some will not. wish to save your return, but I experienced it just briefly. I am not there now. I'm not sure I ever was. Certainly I may never be again. I grieve for that loss, the loss it is. Somehow I moved laterally, but then fell back, and then it was gone. A vanished mountain and a stream, the sound of bells, and all gone now for me, entirely gone.
But now I think I understand. What I was sensing was the manifold of partially actualized realities lying tangent to what evidently is the most actualized one, the one which the majority of us, by consensus gentium, agree on. Although originally I presumed that the differences between these worlds was caused entirely by the subjectivity of the various human viewpoints, it did not take me long to open the question as to whether it might not be more than that in fact plural realities did exist superimposed onto one another like so many film transparencies. One thing I really want you to know. I am aware that the claims I am making, claims of having retrieved buried memories of an alternate present and to have perceived the agency responsible for arranging that alternation, these claims can neither be proved nor can they be even made to sound rational in the usual sense of the word.
Però tu non sei la persona che credi di essere. Se mi stai guardando, vuol dire che non ce l'ho fatta a fuggire. Vuol dire che sono riusciti a darti un nuovo nome, una nuova identità, dei ricordi completamente nuovi, tutto nuovo. Le cose che pensi di sapere, la tua vita, il tuo lavoro, non sono reali. Devi credermi, la cosa più importante per te ora è andare nel mio appartamento. Vai nel mio appartamento. 549 Isperio, non di. Vorrei dirti di più, ma non mi posso ancora fidare. Spero solamente che se tu sei me, abbia trovato la chiave e che sappia come usarla. Abbia trovato la chiave e che sappia come usarla. Buona fortuna.
It was in February of 1974 that my blocked-off memories of Track A returned, and it was in February of 1974 that my novel, Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said, was released finally after two years' delay. It was almost as if the release of the novel, which had been delayed so long, meant that in a certain sense it was all right for me to remember. That is, to remember that the book was not fiction. The book was based on subliminal memories which I had of such a world. But perhaps until the book was actually released, it was better that I did not remember. Why that would be, I do not know. But I have the impression that the memories were not to come to the surface until the material had been published very sincerely on the author's part as what he believed to be fiction. Perhaps, had I known, I would have been too frightened to write the novel. As it was, I was very frightened anyway. There was something about the novel that frightened me a great deal. Or perhaps I would have just shot off my mouth and told everybody and somehow interfered with the effectiveness of that book and such other books of mine as Man in the High Castle, which were also based on residual memories. The effectiveness of those novels might have been impaired. I do not even claim there was an intended effectiveness. Perhaps there was none at all. But if there was one, and I repeat the word if emphatically, it was almost certainly to stir subliminal memories in readers back to them live. Not a conscious lie, not an entering consciousness as in my own case, but to recall to them on a deep and profound, albeit unconscious level, what a police tyranny is like, and how vital it is, now or then, at any time, along any time tract in any world, to defeat it. In March of 1974, the really crucial moves to depose Nixon were beginning. In August, 5 months later, they proved successful. It seems to me that in many ways, ideas have a life of their own. They appear to seize on people and make use of them. The idea which seized me 27 years ago and never let go of me is this: any society in which people meddle in other people's business is not a good society, and a state in which the government, quote, knows more about you than you know about yourself, as it is expressed in my novel Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said, is a state which must be overthrown. It may be a theocracy, a fascist corporate state, or reactionary monopolistic capitalism, or centralistic socialism. That aspect does not matter. And I am saying not merely it can happen here, meaning the United States, but rather it did happen here, meaning the United States. I remember I was one of the secret Christians who fought it, and at least to some extent helped overthrow it. And I am very proud of that, proud of myself in Time Track A. when I saw Star Wars this morning, I thought to myself, Deja-vu. There is, unfortunately, for me, a somber intimation which accompanies my pride in the work that I did in that alternate Earth. I think that in that previous world, I did not live past March of 1974. In this track here, which I will call track B, we fought a much lighter tyranny, a far stupider one. Or perhaps we had assistance. The anterior reprogramming of one or more historical variables came to our rescue. Sometimes I think, and this is of course pure speculation, a happy fantasy of my soul, that because of what we accomplished there, or anyhow attempted to and very bravely, we who were directly involved were allowed to live on here past the terminal point which brought us down that other worst world. It is a sort of miraculous finding. What does he resemble? Not what is he, but rather what is he like?
This is my speech. The title of it is, If You Find This World Bad, You Should See Some of the Others. May I tell you how much I appreciate your asking me to share some of my ideas with you. A novelist carries with him constantly what most women carry in large purses, much that is useless, a few absolutely essential items, and then, for good measure, a great number of things which fall in between. But the novelist does not transport them physically because his trove of possessions is mental. Now and then he adds a new and entirely useless idea. Now and then he reluctantly cleans out the trash, the obviously worthless ideas, and with a few sentimental tears sheds them. Once in a great while, however, he happens by chance onto a thoroughly stunning idea, new to him, which he hopes will turn out to be new to everyone else. It is this final category which dignifies his existence. With such truly priceless ideas, perhaps during his entire lifetime he may at best acquire only a meager few. But that is enough. He has through them justified his existence to himself and to his God. An odd aspect of these rare, extraordinarily valuable ideas, which puzzles me, is their mystifying cloak of, shall I say, the obvious.
Credo di essere stato programmato. Non ho potuto cogliere molto di più di una frase, qualche parola. Niente che mi indichi una qualunque direzione, solo quel poco che basta per farmi riflettere. Mi hanno programmato, e allora mi hanno anche inibito, perché la programmazione funziona così, o nel cervello o in un circuito elettronico. E alla fine mi capiterà di attivare lo stimolo disinibitore, e l'intera programmazione salterà per aria, in modo corretto o no, a seconda se è stata realizzata più o meno bene.
It is as if the idea created for its purposes. I think this is why we discover a startling phenomenon of great renown. That quite often in history, a great new idea strikes a number of researchers or thinkers at exactly the same time, all of them oblivious to their peers. Its time has come, we say about the idea, and so dismissed as if we had explained it, something I consider quite important. our recognition that in a certain literal sense, ideas are alive. What does this mean to say that an idea or a thought is literally alive, and that it seizes on men here and there and makes use of them to actualize itself in the stream of human history? Perhaps the pre-Socratic philosophers were correct. The cosmos is one vast living entity which thinks. It may in fact do nothing but think. In that case, either what we call the universe is merely a form or disguise which it takes, or somehow it is the universe, some variation on this pantheistic view, my favorite being that it cunningly mimics the world of the many, the phenomenal world which we experience daily, and we remain none the wiser.
During those treasured hours, what I saw in her was the loveliness that our own religion, Christianity, at least by comparison, lacks, and incredible symmetry. The Palintonos harmony was terracotta rhoda. The perfect tension and balance of forces within the strung wire was enfolded by stretched strings, which appears perfectly at rest, perfectly at peace. Yet, the strung wire is a balanced organism, immobile only because the tensions within it are in absolute proportion. This is the quality of the Greek formulation of beauty, perfection that is dynamic within, yet at apparent rest without. Against this Palintonos harmonies, the universe plays out of other aesthetic principles incorporated in the Grecian lyre. The Palinthropos harmony, which is the back and forth oscillation of the strings as they are played. I did not see her like this, and perhaps this, the continual oscillation back and forth, is the deeper, greater rhythm of the universe. Things coming into existence and then passing away, changed rather than a static durability. But for a little while I achieved perfect peace, perfect rest, a path we have lost, but a path returning to us as if by means of a long-term oscillation, to be available as our future, in which all lost things shall be restored.